Hi there, and welcome back to the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast. I'm Ryan Bird, joined as always by the founder of the Junior Golf Hub, Roger Nick. Good morning, Roger. Great start to the month of February. Where did January go? There's only 11 of these left, and already Rory McIlroy has a W. I'll tell you, golf is in a funny spot. These signature events are awesome, but they're not every week. And when there's not a signature event, the public seems to not exactly love what the PGA Tour looks like. Where do you come in on that?
Ryan, that's a good statement. I, I'm not really sure. Listen, I still love Live Golf. I think what they're doing has been good for the game, and I think as much as TV hasn't shown it well, it really has come across to a certain population that's playing golf as a good thing. I think it really highlights the frustration that all the PGA Tour players are experiencing of why didn't we think of this before and why aren't we working together? So I really think that it's still disconnected. Obviously, as Roy has made statements over the last few weeks about why can't we actually, get together and play together, and which I think that's the sentiment of all the players, right? So I think Roy winning this event might push some things over the line. I think meaning that I think there was this idea that live players, not live players, but Roy was distracted by live golf, and now he's actually on top of the world. Maybe his voice will carry more weight to push it through.
Well, we welcome in a very special guest this week on the Hub of Junior Golf Podcast, the head coach at Texas A&M, Coach Gerrod Chadwell. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're really busy this time of year. Your Aggies, once again, absolutely loaded. Come into the spring season ranked 17th, and I know that you're underrated. You're lying in the weeds, Coach, ready to push for another Final Four, maybe another SEC title. Let's get us up to date on where you guys are at as we're in the first week of February. I'm sure the schedule is loaded. How do the ladies look, and are you as anxious as I assume you are?
Yeah, good morning, guys. We are. It's I just quickly heard at the end, you start to see Pebble and all these iconic venues on TV, then it can't help but start to get the blood flowing because you're wanting to compete, at your own level. So our first big event is in 2 weeks. We go to Moon Invitational, which is in Melbourne, just east of Orlando, and it's probably one of the best fields we see all year. So I'm thankful we had the 2 weeks to get prepared between now and then, so we can go put our best foot forward there.
Yeah, Coach, listen, you're a winner. Obviously, you got your team, and you're probably going to come out of the gates pretty hot, it seems, with that roster you have. I have a question, and actually, I had this question from a parent just the other day. You have a background in JUCO golf, right? And you've obviously won at that level. You won at every level as a coach and a player. But so the question is that a good route for a player to go? In maybe in lieu of trying to get recruited right out of the gate now with the NCAA possible regulations, roster spots, all of this stuff that's in question. But is junior college golf a good route for a player to start exploring?
Roger, I really appreciate that question because I think nobody ever really recognizes that. I try and say that in my start, and it helped me to be the coach that I am today. Just no different than being a player at that level. I can make some mistakes and it not be so consequential in development. But to answer your question, I think it is very overlooked. I think it kind of can go on two things with what, not to get on a different subject, but what's coming down the pipe with the way college athletics is going to change with these roster spots. For me personally too, I was a little bit of a late developer. I specialized. I had two sports, and I didn't really specialize until college. So I got better every year that I played because I never had played year round. So for some of these young men and women who maybe are dual sport athletes or maybe overlooked, I would say junior college has a bad rap because your grades were bad, and that's why you go to junior college. I think the women's level, it's very top heavy. You know, there was probably 4 schools that had a chance to compete for a national championship. When I was there, the men, man, there's a lot of great players that came out of Odessa, all these great junior colleges. So I think it is a good route. It's a good route to, start to understand what it is, the full-time job it is to be a college athlete. When I was coaching, we pretty much Division One schedule because I'm trying to get my young ladies ready to go play Division One golf, which is where they were going after a year or 2 years with me. So, granted, we maybe weren't playing in a field like the Moon Invitational, but we were playing mid-major to major Division One golf because the other coaches wanted to see my student athletes compete against theirs, so they can kind of get a quick eye or easy eye recruiting wise on them. So, I would say yes, Roger. If you find a coach that's doing it right, it's a great avenue to compete, start to get some of your basics done. That way, when you go transfer to another school, you're just working on your degree program.
Well, we made the left turn, so let's stay down that road, guys. How many currently are on your roster, Coach, at Texas A&M?
Well, I should probably, you said we're kind of laying in the grass, Ryan. We've made some noise. Everybody knows what we're doing. We just had a young lady declare professional right at semester, Adela Cernasek, that leaves a pretty big void for us. And so, we're collectively trying to see how we can make up for her loss, and I think we can as a team. But you don't really replace a tour player with the sixth person on your team. So we're down to 6 right now. But we combine that with a great recruiting class next year. So, we still will probably have to make some roster decisions, even though we're at 6 right now because we have a big class coming in next year. But everybody's kind of waiting to see how this all shakes out in April.
Well, that brings me to obviously women's golf. NCAA women's golf Division I has always had this really uncomfortable transition with Q School and the LPGA, often right in the middle of a NCAA run. We've seen a lot of players jump ship, and they have to. The coaches get it, the players get it. On the men's side, and I know it's not apples to oranges, but they now have PGA Tour U, which seems to be like about as perfect a system for players getting way better access, jumping right to the tour, jumping to the Korn Ferry Tour, Canadian Tour, but not disrupting a college season at all. Yeah. How closely should the NCAA and LPGA look at making some sort of move, if not similar, just something to allow you guys, the coaches, to have an understanding that your team's your team?
Yeah, I think, man, it's another great question, Ryan. I'm married to somebody who plays on the LPGA Tour, so she's tired of hearing about it from me. But I think maybe we don't quite have the depth that the men do that are maybe ready to go out. But I think we could roll out our top 3, our top 5. And maybe it doesn't have to be all LPGA. Maybe it could be your top 2 or top 3 LPGA, your next 2 Epson, and they can start. And I don't see what's wrong with, what we talked with Adela. You're probably going to miss roughly 8 starts, and that's a lot for somebody starting out. So, could you give them that, that 2/3 of the season, because they're probably not going to get into Asia. They might not get into the majors, so they're maybe getting a half a season at best. But could you get them to final stage, or could you get them status for the next year? I think there's something to do. And I truly believe what I've seen with Ingrid Lindblad, what I've seen with Adela Cernasek, these young ladies can compete. And I just think the tour, from a marketability, for just a totally different storyline, I think it would be great for the tour to have that.
Coach, with this being said, let's go down one more level of in the weeds here. Let's take it to the U.S. national program. Obviously, a lot of emphasis on the girls and the women's side of things. So, do you believe that this is going to help the college game? Is it going to help the professional game? What's your sentiment on what's happening in that?
Man, great question, Roger. I think. I think that's yet to be seen. And trying to be, we have a young lady coming in next year that's on that team, Scarlett Strimmer, who's a world-class player. How can it help Scarlett? Man, you're probably, I wouldn't even say, I don't know if it's the access to tournaments because she can probably get in everything she wants. It provides her a little structure transitioning into college golf. I could probably speak on more countries other than the United States of America and their national programs. Sweden does it at a very high level. Canada does it at a very high level. I think, with Chris and Tiff, I think we got to give them more time because I think this really needs to start more. I don't even think at a grassroots, but with these, junior golfers, finding some that the resources truly help them because I just think in America, like, your high end kids, do they really need the national team? I think they're going to find us no matter what. And I'm trying not to say that as a bad thing. I just see some of these players from other countries, have this opportunity with the development team, and they shoot right up. So,
Yeah.
and maybe that's just more us here because we know about the Americans a lot earlier than we do the international kids. But, I think the timing was right. Just knew that Mike Wan had a vision of that and really saw a need, especially now that golf is an Olympic sport. But, and we're pretty far behind in some of these countries that do it at a very, very high level. So, I think we're blessed that we have the talent. We have a big enough country to find the best, but I'm excited about what they do underneath that to push some of these kids, maybe like me, forward that didn't maybe really have that opportunity and find something.
It's
Yeah. I
interesting.
mean, on that note, I'm sorry, Ryan. I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say on that. With that being said, you mentioned it. The opportunities to play, and it seems as though that's not necessarily the issue. It's really the development of these young people, not just golf, but in the whole aspect of what's going to support them coming through the developmental phases as a young person, right? Because you still have school, and a lot of other countries incorporate that, right? A lot of other countries do a full development of the person and not just, hey, let's provide them with tournament opportunities. So I think you said it right. I think it's going to take time, but what I'm nervous about is right now is we're just looking at rankings and looking at who's the best players. Let's put them on the team. Let's go win. Let's try to win. Are we actually doing the best thing for the kids even when we do that and actually start and struggle first and then kind of like build it out, right? So I just wonder if that's the right thing.
I agree, and that's kind of in essence what I was trying to say very nicely. I don't think I think it's a hard thing because the way you start, you want to be competitively right away. So you got to go find the best that you can in America and go compete at a high level. Meanwhile, you got to start bringing these young ladies up, young men up from behind to fill out a roster. I think it's I don't know. I want to try and say this in a nice way. The best are going to go be the best. Would obviously this is not fair in comparison. Did Tiger Woods need to be on the U.S. national team? You're going to want him on there, but did he need to be on there? So I don't know. Maybe that's not a fair comparison to these young men and women who are on the team, but I think the best are going to find those events, and we got to find a way to grow this thing more this way before we just take off straight that way.
Right. And I think part of that is the struggle of a new thing. With a brand new system, you're going to be bringing in 16, 17, and 18-year-olds that are already the best in their class.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be time before they're out of it for anyone to break through. Those have been the best since they were 11 or 12. Maybe at 10, 11, and 12, you get someone because of the money that ends up there that wouldn't have been there. We won't know that for a few more years. That's certainly in Canada why it works is, they're taking kids that necessarily weren't the richest, that had the most access, that were able to pay their way to the top. Not that that's happened in the U.S., but they've been able to find a lot more under rocks of hidden players, and we'll have to see if that works here.
Well, I think,
sure.
Ryan, that's to that point. I think that's what you see other countries do. They actually invest in development. Canada, investing in the long-term athletic development model. Europe doing the same thing. Australia, and lots of other countries. And I think that's the secret, right? The secret is saying, how do we find and identify the talent? Jed, you said this, you were a late, bloomer in some ways, right? It's like, okay, but you possess some skills. How do we recognize those skills? How do we recognize your mental capacity for growth and that growth mindset? And
Yep.
given you those other things, that environment that you need to continue developing those out until you get enough tournament starts, until that actually, uh, transitions onto the golf course, if you will, in tournament play, versus, hey, we're just going to look at the top ranked players because that's how we identify top ranked players. Of course, it's a metric, but it doesn't always mean that they're going to be your best player long term. And maybe that's not the goal here, but I think it is. I think having that conversation with Mike Wan a couple of years ago, which is we want to win the best titles in the world. We want to create the fields that are not just having a lot of American players, but having a lot of American winners and majors and compete week in and week out as the top players, right? So we just see it in the men's game because it's just we have more men.
I think in a way too, I mean, it kind of circles back to this. I mean, it's really what we do as college coaches in a way. And I mean, especially junior college. I mean, it was kids that really nobody had heard of, and you're trying to get them, you're developing for 2 years and that. But, I think from college to the U.S. national development team, they can go a lot wider. They have the resources, they have the staff capabilities, where the back end of our lineup, maybe that looks like a walk-on or something like that you're trying to develop. And, I think that's, I'll circle back into this, what's coming down the point. All the men's coaches that I've talked to, Ryan Hibble being a close friend, a lot of those positions that are now cut was what won him a national championship years ago. Your Quade Covens, your Quade Cummins, your Blaine Hells, they were buried at the bottom of Hibble's lineup. And, they got to hang around, develop, and then next thing you know, he wins a national championship with them. So, I think it's similar in what we currently do, but I think the national team really needs to have that level of going pretty wide for a while, and maybe that's what they're doing with the state teams. I'm pretty ignorant, honestly, Roger and Ryan, with what the whole model is. I think it's just easy to see putting your best players forward, and that's what we see from a social media branding, and I totally get that. It's they need to win and they need to play well to keep on going, get funding to do all that stuff. But it'd be curious to see what they're doing at that state level to get these people involved in the program.
Coach, I want to bring this to junior golf. Certainly, that is the audience. Everywhere I go, parents are freaking out that junior golf is no longer going to be the outlet to college golf. And Roger could tell us better than anyone, especially in the women's game. These parents put college golf on the finish line of 7 and 8 year olds, and it's go college, D1, Power 5, Power 5, Power 5. That could massively change, or no? Are you a junior golf guy, or do you think that where we kind of started this conversation, that JUCO, Division III, Division II, non-Power 5, Division I portal is ultimately going to be how you end up in the SEC?
Yeah, Ryan, that's a $1 million question. I think it's still going to be somewhat of the same. I think what remains to be seen, oh my gosh, is how these roster cuts, how that starts to trickle down. My fear right now, and I say this, and I hope this doesn't cause panic for parents. Are we going to have another COVID situation with how we manage our rosters right now? Are we going to be in a deal where, the portal gets so heavy because your mid-major, your Division II kids that can really play are trying to get that last P4 spot? There was talk of 5 years of eligibility, no more 6-7 year stuff like that. So, are you going to have to figure that of how you drop somebody down, almost like as we had in the COVID year? Like, do I bring in an incoming freshman, or do I keep this kid that we've been developing that's close to playing, that has been playing half the events, or as an individual, do we keep her? So I say a lot is yet to be seen. My fear is this all is going to happen at the last minute and everybody has to pivot and, you try and hit this thing kind of at a crossroads. But I do think junior golf is still important. I do think there is levels to getting to where you ultimately want to go. And whether that's on the elevator or the stairs, I think being successful at all those levels will get you where you need to go. And I don't think there's a blueprint for that. I think a lot of it depends on where you're at now, what you're putting into it. I would tell those junior college kids, those Division II kids like myself, there's a system in place for you to move up. And whether we want to admit it or not, coaches will find you, and they know results are everywhere. So, I think junior golf still has a very, very, very important place in what we do for our job and what they need to do for their development.
Gerrod, you were not only a golf coach running the team, but you're also an instructor. And we
Yes.
always ask the programs or the coaches to tell us a little bit about what's a day in a life look like as an Aggie there with you.
Yeah. So, guys, it's probably very similar to a lot of places. If we look at it a 5-week thing, we'll have roughly 2-3 workouts a week. That's normally in the morning about 7 o'clock. So this semester we're going Tuesday, Thursday, Friday mornings, 7 to 8 for a workout. We're in season now, so we can only script 20 hours a week. If we have a practice, normally that's 3 hours in nature. We might script. When we say script, we might set up something that would require an hour and some change of their time. Normally that's inside 100 yards that we will script something for them from a scoring, from a competitive, from development standpoint. And then we give them autonomy to work on what they need to work on. I think, tie this into a little bit of junior golf and what we're talking about. We're trying to take an individual in nature and fit them into a team environment. And it seems the trend and a lot, what we're seeing with coming in is a lot of these kids do online school or homeschool and stuff like that to create more time for them to travel and do everything else, versus a public school kid like myself. So, and even some, for women, maybe they might not have a high school team at their school, depending on where they're coming from. So we're still trying to integrate individuals into a team environment. So, that practice time with us is good for all those things. When things are in a good spot, we'll encourage them to go to the golf course. And maybe that's one of our staff going out there with them, working on certain situations in practice. And that's maybe what a practice would look like in a nutshell. We're doing some testing stuff via combine, via scoring. And then we have qualifying, which is like the dreaded word in college golf. Like, how do you do qualifying? Like, as if it's some sort of system you got a game. But, during the week, we'll have 2 or 3 rounds to determine who goes on the road for a tournament. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say from juniors adjusting to college life is, number one, their time. How do you manage with your time? Because you're coming from an environment where you might have had a lot of people doing a lot of stuff for you, to you pretty much had everything figured out from A to B, to now you're kind of just thrown into this spin cycle of, man, I'm the low man on the totem pole. Everything is new and foreign, and I have all this time still. How do I get the most out of it? And then also, how do I fit into this team environment and qualifying, where I never had to qualify before. I either sign up to play or I'm one of the best in my high school golf team. Now qualifying is a big thing, a big stressor. So that in a quick way describes a week with us. And in there you have sports psychologists, you have nutrition, you have all this other stuff, academic advising, that helps you be hopefully be a well-rounded person.
Coach, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. Women's golf, NCAA college golf, is in a much different boat than the PGA Tour and men's college golf. I'll cite 2 examples and then ask you if, certainly we saw with Caitlin Clark that women's college basketball became much, much more popular than women's professional basketball. It's a fact. All you have to do is look at the numbers. If you look at the women's college golf in ANWA, the event last year in New Mexico, for example, was higher rated than 89% of all LPGA events Thursday and Friday on television on Golf Channel. ANWA certainly does extremely well in the television department. American audiences are showing that they are more interested, or as interested, actually more, more, the numbers prove more in women's college golf than women's professional golf. There seems to be a gigantic hole here as far as how much women's golf is televised. I know your team in the fall will be on national television playing at Noda's event on Golf Channel. Do you see that as something that we're going to start to see college golf televised weekly because there is a demand for it?
You know, man, Ryan, I hope so. How do I answer this without getting in trouble? I think you know, I'm a fan of college athletics, and you know, if it might be two teams I'm unfamiliar with playing basketball tonight, I might flip it on and watch them. I think, you know, people are compelled to support their alma mater and watch. They might have an attachment to us playing in Noda's event, and you know, all the other avenues that might have to be on the Golf Channel. Man, gosh, I'm going to just say it. You don't have many stories in professional golf, and I don't know if that's just not being told why the pace of play is slow. Like, I don't watch it either, you know. And it's somebody.
We're going to get in trouble at home.
I am. I know when she's playing, if she's in early or late. So there's one day, at least Thursday, Friday, I might get to see her in coverage. But man, I don't. Obviously, Nelly was an amazing story last year, and how could you not tune into that? But you know, guys, in a lot of ways, I thought that was a missed opportunity by the tour because I didn't think that it reached the channels that it needed to reach. And as things happen, then Scotty goes on his run, and you don't even hear about women's golf anymore. So, meaning Scotty Scheffler. So, the tour has to do a better job, Ryan, a way better job of marketing their product, reaching audiences. You know,
I'll go the other way. Forget the tour coach. Let them do what they're doing. Yep. The fact that there's an audience for college golf, and you know, if you look at everything on television now, there's obviously a million channels. You can stream everything now. College golf, in my opinion, is still way underserving what the audience wants. The numbers prove it. We put a match play event on, and it's crushing the LPGA Tour. Yet there isn't a ton of. I mean, there's kind of 4 or 5 events. Do you agree it's a sleeping giant?
It is, and I think, Ryan, the hardest thing in today's world with us as a non-revenue sport is how. I mean, you guys have great partners. How can we afford the TV? I think it is a great product. I think you see. Oh man, here I am going to get in trouble again. I think you see the team aspect, which we have a tour that does the team deal. I think you see the team aspect. I think you see camaraderie. I think you see relationships. I think you see all this stuff that has the end user captivated to it, plus the logo. I think our part, the hardest thing for us is how can we get the folks at Golf Channel to get us a discount on TV? I think it's expensive for us to be able to. I mean, you guys have great partners for the match play. You know, obviously, I'm very familiar, just my wife, with Mr. Tyson, what he has done for the Blessings event and college golf there. And, you know, I think we just got to find creative ways for us to be able to do that. And, I think you're exactly right. I think we would really put a dent in viewership with the LPGA if we had a bunch of women's events on. And I might even say, a lot of people are going to watch the PGA Tour, but men's college golf, I mean, what did they just have? Like, what they have the Southwestern, they have a bunch of events on the Golf Channel. That's great. I'm more apt to, and maybe it's easy to say my profession, but man, I can relate to them. You know, parents maybe have kids in the household that have played against them or the same age, junior golf ties. Like, I just think you have more things to get the viewer to watch with college golf, and it's a great product.
Well, it's just more consumable, right? I mean, when you think about it, you've kind of hit some nails on the head there, which it's just the way it's presented. It's more consumable versus I've got this 2.5 or 3 hour telecast, and you're going to show the same 5 people, right? Where in
True.
college golf,
True.
you've got a bouncing back, you're telling a story, you've got some kids that are going to make mistakes. It's kind of like watching when NASCAR was, up and coming, is you watch for the crashes. And, not that you want college golfers to shank it or miss it, but there's just more emotion in the game when it comes to watching that kind of player. It's like minor league baseball, which is just a completely different dynamic than going to a Major League Baseball game. There's just much more effort into the moment, and not to say that the tour players aren't doing that. It's just you're only seeing 3 or 4 at the top of the leaderboard that they can actually telecast because of the story they're creating and not the entire story of the tournament. And that's why, Noda and Ryan, these guys done such a good job of putting it on TV and being able to make this story come about with these players, these teams that you go, I never heard of this person, but man, what a joy to watch. This is so cool.
And I can even think back to, man, I don't know if it was the first national championship in Eugene, just both sides of how good that match play was, women and men. Man, us at Eastlake, we had a young lady chipping for eagle on 18. I just think of so many dramatic moments that happen, and you might not ever see them in an LPGA broadcast. But man, it was great. And those guys do a great job. Doing a good job of telling the story for us. I don't know, and I don't know if it's even too like, that for some of these young ladies and young men, that's it. This is after college golf. It's really it. So you do see, like you said, the passion, just the camaraderie of the team. And maybe that's what brings it out is the team.
The LPGA, if it's a 4-day event, you're not having a winner until 4 days later. Every single hole in match play, there is a winner and a loser. There is a reaction, just like it was the 72nd hole of a tournament. Every hole has a winner, a loser, or a tie. But there's a reaction because it's defined like that. I think that, Golf Channel wasn't stupid when they moved the NCAAs to match play. A lot of people were like, well, this isn't going to give you the true winner. Okay, maybe it doesn't, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot more exciting. And, that's kind of what we've tried to do. And Coach, I know I'm keeping you way long, but we're excited to see your team perform in that environment where every hole has a winner or a loser. We're playing for the name on the hat and the jersey. It's going to be exciting to see your team on TV.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, we can't thank you guys for inviting us, and we're already counting down the days to get there.
All right, Coach. Thanks so much for joining us on the Hub of Junior Golf podcast. Have a great spring season, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one. Good luck.
Thanks.
Oh, Roger, first thing that jumps off the page to me, another team that sounds like they are doing a poor man's PDI for their practice every day. Very similar in the wording, but obviously not the same structure. Another great example of a team that probably is going to really embrace and get behind what you've created.
Yeah, I mean, you hear his passion for the player who's developing, right? So clearly, for him, it was like, I went to Division II. I was a late bloomer. I didn't, kind of confess that I was a one-sport athlete until then, which goes hand in hand with long-term development. And I think that's what PDI really shows, not only the player, but the coach and the parents of, I do have talent. I just need to put it on display when it's ready, right? And so he's doing that. It sounds like we hear that from a lot of coaches and a lot of teams. It's exciting of what's going on. I mean, we just had UCF's event down in Orlando, actually still going on right now. Their event hosted in Orlando, which is kind of fun to see and listen to those players talk about, wow, I can do this every single day at practice and know that I'm getting better because I'm challenging myself on my skills, and it feels like I'm actually competing. So which is really fun to hear and fun to see.
And again, it's very, very close to becoming public across the world, but we've already let the cat out of the bag on the podcast. So anyone listening with your kids, you're a step ahead of everyone else as far as preparation. But for the first time ever, PDI will actually be run as its own tournament this year across the United States, as an opportunity to actually the winners of each age group, both boys and girls, Roger, will actually bypass the stroke play portion of the